Wake up and good morning here on this edition of Mic'd Up on Pittsburgh Sports Live, Pittsburgh Sports Now, and all throughout the Now family of networks. It is another hump day edition of the show, halfway through the week, and this one's going to be a good one. I'm actually excited for this one. When you get traction and you get responses to a report, it's going to make for great radio or broadcast or conversation nonetheless. I'm your host, Mike Asti, and I'm joined as always by Mike Vukovcan. And we are going to touch on, as I alluded to there, some backlash and some reaction and our thoughts on Pitt canceling an official visit with a recruit who has said that he is certainly thinking about Pitt and even has a connection to a regional star in his uncle, who also is a part of this backlash and his response to what's going on. And then, of course, Steelers' new offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, making some comments about his relationship with future Hall of Famer Ben Roethlisberger and how this year is going to go and how the playbook's going to look. We will discuss that as well. Mike, to get us underway, Pitt cancels an official visit with a recruit, and this is a recruit who has put it out there on social media and through his uncle, based on what his uncle said, that he is certainly considering Pitt. Jalen Hood-Schifino is this player. He is a 5-star, and Pitt only has so many visits to give in a given amount of time, so it's not like they wouldn't want to see this kid, but they do cancel the official visit. What are your thoughts on Pitt canceling the official visit? Because this is a Pitt team that still has spots to fill, that still needs to do some work recruiting, and is still in flux from losing players last year in this bridge-style season, losing out on a player they wanted even a couple months ago. And then the backlash that we're seeing, including, as I mentioned, Drew Schifino, who is a WVU leading scorer, a star at West Virginia University decades ago, the uncle of this kid, responding that this is, obviously he has some bias there being a WVU product, but saying this is Pitt is Pitt. And his exact tweet was, wild. Pitt was number one on the list for my nephew Jalen. Idiotic move by Pitt to not want a top 30 recruit who wanted them. Laugh out loud. Pitt will always be Pitt. So who knows if that's true or not, but he's claiming this kid wanted to go to Pitt and they were top of his list, but Pitt cancels the official visit.
Well, this one has a lot of different areas, but I'll start with the fact that
Sure.
I support Jeff Capel and what he did for a few different reasons. Does Pitt want to get a guy like Jalen Hood-Schifino? Of course they do. However, in my opinion, if he, and I know the answer, his Drew, who's a good guy.
Yeah, he is a good guy. I know.
Yeah, I've had conversations with him. I understand both sides of this. He responded to a couple Pitt fans that responded to his original tweet by saying that his nephew wanted to go through the college experience of recruiting and didn't want to make, after he originally committed to Pitt as a freshman,
right,
and then he decommitted. Well, people's response were, if he wanted to come to Pitt, he should have committed. And he said, well, he wanted to experience recruiting. Well, I understand that side of the argument. However, I'm going to stick with Capel on this for the fact that Jeff Capel needs to get talent that he knows wants to be there. And if he really wanted to go to Pitt, he could give Jeff Capel a silent commitment. Still, whatever. He could have made this. This has been over a year now that he has this decision. The other thing is, you're going to be seeing Pitt adding somebody that plays at, my guess is that the reason this happened was because Jeff Capel might be knowing that he's getting a player at the similar position of Hood-Schifino. He's probably going to happen here within the next 24 to 48 hours. When it comes down to it, he's going to take what he knows he's getting, and this player is a good player. He's a top 100 player.
Yeah.
So it's not as though he's going to be reaching for some walk-on or a 2-star recruit.
Yeah, Capel's not stupid.
Getting a good player that says, I want to play for Pitt. I'm going to your program.
Right.
And after what happened to him with Efton Reed,
that's what I was mentioning.
5-star recruit.
Yeah.
And he starts going to other programs, visits, and he was supposed to be going to Pitt. He gave Pitt a commitment verbally, and then he backed out if I'm Jeff Capel, I'm gun shy. I'm not taking any chances. If I know I'm going to get a very good player, a top 100 player, sorry, I'm taking him. I have no problem with Jeff Capel's doing. And as you mentioned at the top, which I think a lot of fans don't take into consideration, you can't take every official visit that wants to come. So I've read some people say, why don't just let him come on and take the official visit? Why make the kid look bad? There's nothing about making the kid look bad.
Yeah, they don't want to do that either.
A program only gets X amount of official visits over a 2-year period. And he could be looking ahead to next year. He's not going to burn an official visit when he knows inside his head that I'm not taking this kid anyway. So why blow smoke up this kid's butt and not, host him when he knows that he's not going to take him? I have no problem with Pitt in this decision.
Yeah, I hear you for sure. And I think that is part of it that not everybody is aware of. Again, mic'd up here, presented by Martin Lawn Services. Doug Martin's number is 412-849-5894. This got traction because of who his uncle is, because his uncle's speaking out and then the responses there. That definitely is a part that I don't think everyone's aware of. Do you feel that Pitt canceling this visit, you mentioned because of a recruit they may be getting here soon, which certainly could make sense. Pitt is not stupid. Jeff Capel's not stupid. They're not just going to go undermanned. But is it because of Efton Reed, because of that situation and how that unfolded? That was a situation where, to refresh everyone's memory, and we touched on it on the show, that was a 5-star recruit. That was the diamond in the rough this year. That was a player that Pitt thought could help them this season for sure. Pitt thought he had him on lock. News supposed to come out Friday. Family has this linger, ends up not coming to Pitt, going to LSU. So Jeff Capel felt like maybe there was egg on his face on that situation. They don't want to embarrass this kid, but does that maybe that did make Jeff Capel gun shy? And Jeff Capel said, well, if I have a waffler already, I'm not going to risk getting embarrassed, especially if I feel like I have somebody else that potentially could come here.
I don't think there's any question. I don't think he'll admit that. But yes, I think that played into it. And the other thing is, I think the bigger part is Hood Schifino's mother told us last night, and by the way, I'm going to give props to George Michalowski, our Pitt beat reporter for Pittsburgh Sports Now.
Yeah, he's been doing a great job.
Following him on Twitter.
Yeah. And
you're a Pitt basketball fan, you need to be doing so. The kid is not saying this because he's with us. Anyone who knows me knows that I don't say something I don't believe. The kid's a star. He really is. He's the work he's doing for us, the scoop he's getting, the stories we're having because of George. It was it's the second greatest thing I've done with Pittsburgh sports. Now, best was bringing on Alan Saunders.
Right. Well, that's big words if that's second.
Second best thing was bringing on George. George is he's a star in the business. But she told George during our phone interview that we didn't put everything in the story, but she said to him he canceled the official visit with us because he has another guard coming. So and there's a guard on Friday making his decision that made an official visit to Pitt. His name is Judah Mintz. He's a 4-star guard, highly rated, top 100 player. It's probably a good guess that when he made his official visit to Pitt last week, he probably informed Jeff Capel that I'm coming to Pitt. And that was it. So I haven't 100% confirmed that, but if you put 2 and 2 together, it sure looks like Judah Mintz will be coming to Pitt. And if that's the case, very good guard, star guard. He wants to come. That's it. And like I said, who knows who's involved with Jalen Hood Schifino. When you start recruiting, and we talked about what goes on in the world of recruiting, Jeff Capel knows that.
Right.
I don't have to say it. So
this also touches on, and you've mentioned this before, that schools are dipping their toes in when some of these kids are in 8th grade. And when a kid makes a decision in 8th grade to defend the kid too, and this certainly, unfortunately, led to the kid not getting what he wanted based on what his uncle said, based on what Drew said, and based on the reports coming out of the kids' camp and family. but it makes sense to waffle off of what you said in 8th grade. Yeah, he came in 8th grade. He committed in 8th grade, and then ends up decommitting.
He committed after his ninth grade, somewhere during the ninth grade season, and then a year later,
right,
he decommitted and said nothing against Pitt, because I know his family has liked Jeff Capel, and they had a big attraction to him.
I'm sure
their reason was that Jalen wanted to experience
recruiting,
and go through official visits, and didn't just want to commit to the school that he grew up.
Well, what I'm saying is, though, yeah, so 9th grade, but I get that maybe he wanted to change his mind or wanted to experience things, or made a decision in 9th grade and then says, "Oh, I don't want to sell myself short." I get all that. I made decisions in 9th grade that by the time 12th grade or after, you certainly could change your mind. But every decision you make, this is a lesson for him. There is a consequence to it. So if you make a decision in 9th grade, which maybe is too early for some kids, maybe he would have been better off not making a decision then. He made a decision. He changed his mind. 9th graders change their mind. Certainly makes sense. A 10th grader or 11th grader are going to change their mind. But when you do so, there is a consequence to it. Yep. And now these are the consequences. And I also think Drew's a good guy. I know Drew. So it's unfortunate that a player like Drew, a guy that has connection to the region and certainly the WPIL as a star, and then at WVU, would be involved in this as well as his uncle, and that kind of gained traction here. Even some Pitt fans responding, man, I don't mean to argue with you, but he could have told them at any time that was his choice, even after decommitting. You know how this works with top players. They tell them they will stop recruiting the position, they commit, and then they change their mind. So yeah, that does say he could have told them, if he would have told them a month ago, I am 100% in at Pitt, maybe this would have went differently, because maybe Capel wouldn't have looked for somebody else, because maybe he would have said, I don't want to risk one player that wants to come here to go get somebody else because I've already missed out on a guy. But he also probably thought that Jalen Hood-Schifino was not 100% locked in. Shout out to Drew Schifino, though. Good guy for sure. So absolutely a good guy. We talk every now and then. And we will see how this continues to unfold. Again, Mike Vukovcan and Mike Asti here, mic'd up, presented by Martin Lawn Services on PSL and PSN. And now to get things back to the offseason talk of the Pittsburgh Steelers that seemingly always is a conversation this time of year. Matt Canada makes comments that he is willing to adjust his scheme and playbook a little bit. He's, of course, going to work with Ben Roethlisberger. He's going to bring some of Ben's plays in, some vision, some ideas. Our Nick Faribaugh touched on this on Steelers Now with a nice article on how that's going to mold. Matt Canada's system does not normally dictate to his quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger. He's never really dealt with a guy like Ben from his days at Pitt to in college to the pros to even really last year, because he didn't fully get to implement his plays. And that obviously can help Ben, because many of the thoughts coming into this season were Ben wants to come back, but could he even fit into what Canada wants to do? What are your thoughts to what Canada's saying now? Because that does clear things up. People were wondering, how could Ben fit in? How much work is Ben going to have to do? He's getting a new OC, tons of new work, learning everything new. His last year, that could be hard. It now seems like Canada is acquiescing to Ben a little bit. And actually, this kind of has been polarizing too. There are some who said that Canada is looking like maybe a little wimpy, that Ben has called him and said, we got to adjust and go to my plays. So Canada's willing to bend, whereas maybe it's not the best for the team, or vice versa. What are your thoughts on Canada being willing to throw some Ben plays in there, and this maybe adding some wrinkles of what Ben wants in addition to what he wants in the offense?
I think Matt Canada is I think he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
He has a history of running very successful offenses.
Right.
But he also realizes, he's smart enough to realize that Ben Roethlisberger, despite his age and despite what people think about him, Ben Roethlisberger is still the face of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So he could say he has to develop this relationship with Ben Roethlisberger. Last year, he was just his quarterback's coach.
Right.
And I'm sure they had a relationship, but he did most of his conversations with Fichtner. Now it's him and him. So they have to develop a bond here. And he's not going to say anything within the media this early that's going to piss his quarterback off.
Right. There you go. Sure.
Yeah, that's not going to – he can say whatever he wants. But when it comes down to it, the things that he mentioned a couple times is what's going to happen. Mention about the Rooneys, how they want to run the football. He could say how much he's going to tailor this toward Ben, but the thing that you're going to see different with the Steeler offense this year, there's no doubt about that, is you're not going to – I highly doubt you're going to see Ben Roethlisberger throwing the ball consistently 45, 50, 60 times a game.
There will not be a 60 pass attempt game, right?
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Are they going to run plays that Ben is good at and that could be successful for the offense that he's capable of doing? Of course. He should have an impact, an input. Right. Nobody knows his offense or nobody knows his players and what he can do like Roethlisberger. So why shouldn't he have a voice? I think people are going to have a little bit look too much into the comments. We'll see when camp arrives, when we start actually seeing plays. Right now, it means nothing because there's not an opposing defense out there.
And people are always going to read into things, which is kind of good for us in a way, good for business. But yeah, Canada's not going to say anything to annoy Ben Roethlisberger because obviously you don't want to do that in general. But I'm sure Canada's very aware, even though he hadn't been here the whole time, that Ben's relationship with the offensive coordinator is absolutely important to this offense. Ben's relationship with the offensive coordinator has been detailed from Todd Haley to Randy Fichtner last year. If Ben does not feel a hunky-dory relationship with the offensive coordinator, it's just not going to work. And it's not like Ben's going to sink the ship intentionally, but it's just not going to work. His body language, what he says, you can just tell whether Ben likes an OC or not. And it does appear that he's okay with Matt Canada. Yes, it will be some work for him in his last year, but he signed up for this. He's taking less. He wanted to come back. He wanted to end his legacy better. So he had to know that work would be there. But it's just mature for an offensive coordinator, especially dealing with a Hall of Fame quarterback, so you have less stature in the organization, whether he's playing good or not, and last year or not, he's still Ben Roethlisberger, that you're going to bend and acquiesce a little bit. You got to implement your plays. If you're going to lose, if you're going to get fired, if you're going to sink with the ship, you want to sink doing what you want to do rather than somebody else. But you have to play to the strength of the personnel. You have to adjust to who's the personnel. I'm sure that if Ben would get hurt and Mason Rudolph ends up starting a bunch of games, I'm sure Matt Canada's going to adjust or change some plays up as well because they're just different style quarterbacks. Certainly if Dobbs plays, if Dobbs gets in there, you're going to see a package that's different than what Ben or Mason can do. You got to play to the personnel. So I don't read too much into these comments either. I do also think that people out there who are replying, because I saw some of this as well, saying, well, yeah, it's mature of how the offensive coordinator should act to a veteran quarterback. But what about Ben as the veteran quarterback or the veteran quarterback acquiescing to the OC? A new OC comes in there with new players. They want the offense to be better. Ben should just say, you give me what you ever want and I'll do what you want to do. Well, that's just not how it is in the NFL. Yes, it's an employee to leader, I guess, boss of the offense, you could say, technically position-wise, that the offense coordinator is in charge of the quarterback like receivers and running backs. But it's a quarterback-driven league. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's the face of the franchise. Matt Canada is not going to go in there and say, Ben, you're going to listen up and do what I want you to do, and if you don't like it, get the hell out. That's just not going to work. That's not going to lead him to success by any means.
Well, the other thing is, before Ben Roethlisberger agreed to this restructure of his contract,
right?
This new the way the offense is going to be run this year. That just didn't come up.
Oh, yeah, sure.
It didn't come up a month ago. So I either through talks with Rooney, with Tomlin, with whatever, they let Ben know that, hey, Ben, I guarantee you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Canada was already on staff. So I'm sure they said, we're looking at Canada. Here's its plays. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're coming back, here's what we're going to be doing. I know this is the way we've done things in the past,
right?
But things change. So, you're on board with this. But I just think that, those comments, the way he said it, I'm going to admit, when I first saw the comments, it was, I'm going to do what Ben, blah, blah. It did look like but then I just thought about it. That's just talk. And Ben hasn't, the thing is, Ben has never said anything this offseason about, I want to do this, I want to do that. People are just going to look.
That'll be the first question, though. The second we get his media day, he's going to 100% be asked, what are your thoughts on Canada saying he's going to basically do whatever you want, which is not what he said, but that'll try to be twisted. And certainly, because there are going to be people that are going to read into this, certainly nationally, that
the only way we're going to be able to judge this, Mike, is once we see first week of September and we start seeing games. Yeah, I'm sure maybe some in the preseason. Who knows how much they're going to vanilla things down? But in the games, that's when we're truly going to see what changes the Steeler offense have made and how much has it gone back toward the running game, how much less throwing they're going to do. They could be talk all they want right now, but we're truly not going to know until the season opener. Who's that against? Buffalo? Is that the?
Yeah. So, no, absolutely. We're not going to know until the season is underway, or even at least in the preseason. Maybe you'll get some more time with Ben in there, even though there's 3 games just because of a new offense, or even in training camp. We're not going to really see until the 7 shots at the earliest, because you want to see what kind of packages they're running against whoever. So we will see. And I'm sure that Matt Canada will also have to adjust a lot of this on the fly, Mike, that in week 1, if the offense is struggling, because again, I think more of the conversation, which we'll get to in future shows, should be about, and we don't know now, if Ben can have success in this style offense. Ben's a Hall of Famer, nothing against him, not even about his age, but this is a little bit of a complex offense. It is a lot on timing. It's not even just Ben. The tight ends, the running backs, if they miss their time, if they're a second late, that can sink this whole offense. So everyone's going to have to learn this together. And if it's looking like somebody's missing timing or they're not getting together in week 1, maybe you're going to see for a game they sprinkle in a little bit more of the pass to try to get through it and then go back. This is going to be practice and change and adapt on the fly this year, because it is kind of a new offense for a lot of these guys. But having a player like Najee Harris, whether you liked him being drafted or not, will make it easier on Ben. He might maybe have less pass attempts, but it's going to make it easier on Ben. They're not going to know the pass is coming every single play. They're not going to be keying in on Ben every single play. It'll make it easier on the offensive line to protect. He'll be able to make something out of nothing if nothing is there, and even make it easier on the receivers to get separation. He could be a major factor, which is why many think Offensive Rookie of the Year is very, very possible for him if things go well. So we will see the plays. You'll know whether these are Matt Canada plays or not. Let me tell you, last year we thought we were going to have some Matt Canada plays. We saw him 1 week. We didn't see him again in 3 or 4 weeks. His plays are different. Any Pitt fan will know. So you will certainly know if they've abandoned Matt Canada's plays for a couple weeks in a row. And then, of course, that'll be a whole nother conversation if that occurs. But I doubt that will happen, obviously. That'll do it for this edition of the show. We'll certainly be back with more programs here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. Certainly remind you to hit that subscribe button, bottom of this video. It's free to do so here to get that content to you. And also head over to the sites over there at Pittsburgh Sports Now throughout. Go ahead, Mike.
I just want to throw up one quick thing. Later today, just a little quick promo. Pitt's going to be getting Pitt football will be getting a commitment probably later this afternoon, going into early evening. I spoke to the kid last night. Another good get for Pat Narduzzi. So I just want to give the kid gave a commitment a couple of days ago, or Narduzzi gave an alert that Pitt got a commitment a couple days ago. That will be revealed. The kid's going to make it public later this afternoon. I spoke with him last night. Pitt fans will like the profile on this kid. Obviously, they don't know his skill set, but as far as looking at his recruiting page and the offers he has, they will be happy with a get, and that'll be coming up later today. And of course, we'll have the story as soon as the kid makes it public.
And even more reason, again, head over to Pittsburgh Sports Now for that story and everything else over there at PSN and all throughout the network of sites. So yeah, and that's a big part of recruiting too. If you see certain schools going after a kid, you know there's something there. So that certainly can read into that as well. But for Mike Vukovcan, I'm Mike Asti here for all of us at PSL, PSN, and beyond. That'll do it here for a Hump Day edition of the show. Head over to any of these sites and, of course, social media to find out what's going on and join in any of the conversation about the backlash to these stories.